Now, I'll admit when it comes to taking a comic and turning it into a movie, a few corners are likely to be cut. Characters might be merged into one person or roles shifted to fit a tighter runtime and so on. But the one thing that you would always hope to be correct is the appearance of these loved icons. I mean, look at Wolverine. Hugh Jackman nails his look, all bar their yellow and black attire, but we can forgive this minor transgression. What we can't excuse, however, is when you've got hundreds of comics to base a look on, but for some reason the film version ends up looking like you've thrown angst through a Hot Topic store. Now, before I begin this list, I'm not saying that I hate these characters' redesigns, and in fact a few of these are better than their sometimes sillier originals. However, the point is to show how much they've changed, okay? Right, well, let's get on with the show. With this in mind, I'm Jules from WhatCulture.com, and these are 10 movie characters who look nothing like their comic book versions. Number 10. Enchantress, Suicide Squad. Think what you will about the Suicide Squad and its offbeat story and stereotypical beams of light in the sky, but the one thing that you should be really ticked off about is the portrayal of Enchantress. Aside from her Just Dance grooves and weird CGI stink lines, it appears a great deal of time went into ignoring her source material, which predominantly shows her wearing emerald green with a long cape and a Wonder Woman-esque headpiece. Now, we understand that the change was made to make her appearance more evil from the off. A shift from the lighter clothing to the dark partway through the film would have suited the flick much better, as how it stands now is that she's just another stinky bog witch with some moves best reserved for your dad's wedding dance routine. Number 9. RHINO, The Amazing Spider-Man 2. Remember when the trailer for Amazing Spider-Man 2 came out and suggested that Paul Giamatti's RHINO was going to be a huge part of the narrative? Yeah, well, obviously what we got from it was about 5 minutes in total, bookending the story. It's a shame, as the RHINO suit at the end looked pretty fantastic, a massive mechanized Hulk. But in a film which introduced a man made of electricity, why was the RHINO's original design scrapped? In the comics, he's a monster of a man who dons a suit of fake skin which gives him his superhuman strength. And yes, the horn on his head can look a little silly, but then again, you've got a man made of pure electric, so realism is kind of on thin ice as it is. Plus, the idea of Giamatti being mutated into this monster would have made for a great character shift. But hey ho, we'll just have to be content with this super cheesy end shot of a manhole cover battering him. God, you're welcome, I guess. Number 8. Dr. Poison, Wonder Woman. Say it with me, kids. Dr. Poison! You know what, actually, there's only one man who can do this real justice. Ben, get in here!
Dr. Poison!
Ah, thanks, Ben. He's a good guy. Terrible human being, but a good guy. Anyway, Skin Flap over here is one of the main baddies in the new Wonder Woman film. She's part of the "oh my god, I'm so very evil" team which just loves to kill for the sake of killing. She wasn't a particularly deep character, but she did provide a good enemy to root against. However, there has been a massive shift from the comics to film when it comes to her style. In the film, she's much more restrained, and I feel that DC was trying to hold off on the super crazy until the end of the flick. But in the comics, she dons a full bodysuit with her face entirely hidden from view. Both versions would have worked on screen, but I do believe the more theatrical costume would have made her feel a bit more memorable. Number 7. Apocalypse, X-Men Apocalypse. X-Men fans waited years to see Apocalypse do battle on the big screen, but when it finally did happen, the character didn't look anything like the monstrous, muscular, Bane-like brute that's found on the page. Instead, the movie version was the size of a regular human, with a different skin tone, and a very awesome set of powers, but that he only seemed to want to use once or twice. The character's comic book design would have made him feel much more menacing. After all, the hulking, physically powerful force of nature feels much more threatening than what is essentially an adult Smurf in a plastic-looking jumpsuit. Number 6. The Mandarin, Iron Man 3. My name is Trevor! The now infamous reveal of the Mandarin caused quite a stir when it first came out. I mean, do you know what? I loved it, but that's only because I could hear the collective rage ringing out large across the nerdverse as one of Iron Man's greatest foes had been reduced to effectively a joke. I mean, do we really need to look at the differences between the two? For one, the Mandarin in the comics is a guy who's trained his entire life in terms of combat and the sciences in order to become the ultimate combination of brains and brawns. He also had a buttload of magic at his disposal due to 10 rings he found in the tomb of an alien. As you can imagine, none of this made it into the film. However, if the movie had just played it straight, then I just know that people would have been much warmer to the radicalist icon that was shown in the first half of the movie than they were to old Trev and his dodgy guts in the second half. Number 5. HELMUT ZEMO, Captain America Civil War. Now, for similar reasons as to why Dr. Poison was made a little bit less over the top, ZEMO was also dialed down on the theatrical side so that his presence would make much more sense in the world of the film. That being said, the man with no powers, no scarring, and not even a whisper of purple hoods sure is different to the comic book powerhouse. The current ZEMO in the comics is a skilled strategist and has clashed with Captain America several times, even forming supervillain groups to thwart the big bold eagle lover. Not much more to say on this one other than it's about as polar opposite as you could get from the source. Number 4. The Ancient One, Doctor Strange. The casting of Tilda Swinton as the Ancient One in 2016's Doctor Strange drew a lot of negative press for one primary reason: the whitewashing of a character that's traditionally Asian. That being said, Swinton was fantastic in the role, and on top of the gender switch, still gave life to the character in a very believable way. However, if you look at the two side by side, there's a ton of differences. Race, gender, the lack of a headpiece, and robes that seem devoid of colour. It's definitely striking to see Swinton in this role, but it's a very different look to the comics. Number 3. Lex Luthor, Batman v Superman, Dawn of Justice. Lex Luthor has never really been accurately portrayed, looks-wise, on the big screen. In the comics, the character is often quite muscular and possesses chiseled facial features. Still, it's the latest actor who's delivered us the most radical departure from the source material that Luthor has ever seen. With his flowing locks, overly energetic speech pattern, and odd sense of humour, he was nothing like the composed, mature, and fear-inducing character found on the pages of DC Comics. Eisenberg did go bold for a final few scenes of the movie, but he still retained those personality quirks that made him a far cry from the Luthor that we all expected. Number 2. Deadpool, X-Men Origins, Wolverine. Nope! Next! And number 1, Galactus, Fantastic Four, Rise of the Silver Surfer. Okay, so when did Galactus become space gas? Did the animators just not want to bother or something? This sure is a far cry from the purple-pointed helmeted super being from the comics, and it's so weird, especially seeing as the film shows the Silver Surfer pretty much exactly as he's meant to look. To strip Galactus of nearly all of his identifiable traits was a big mistake in an already mistake-laden film. I don't know about you, but I'm tired of seeing villains portrayed as gas or energy or something other than a 300,000-foot tall nutter with a penchant for eating planets. Maybe it is just me, and you know what, I really doubt that a big Galactus would have saved this film. But come on, space gas? No. And that's our list. Got any other comic book characters who had a weird identity shift for no real reason? Well, let me know about them in the comments section below. And why not swing by whatculture.com for more news and articles like this every goddamn day. As always, I've been Jules, you've been awesome, and I'll speak to you soon.